Awesome. Okay, so we have two presenters with us today, Josh Fergie and Jasmine Cassis from the Session Replay team. I'll open it up to the both of you to introduce yourselves.
Hi, yeah. So I'm Josh. I'm a senior software engineer here at Sentry, and I primarily worked on the back end for Session Replay, and I've been working on it for about 6 months, and I'm stoked to have everyone use it. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Jasmine, and I am the product manager for Session Replay, and I've been working on this product since August of last year, and very excited to share it with you all today.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a pretty packed agenda. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So Jasmine, I'll hand it over to you to give a broad overview of Session Replay. And then from there, we're going to move on to Josh, who's going to provide a live demo. And then we're going to try to leave as much time as we can in the latter half of the session to open it up to all of you for questions. A lot of you submitted some questions ahead of this event, so we'll try to get through as many as we can. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them into the YouTube chat. We actually have the entire Session Replay engineering team on the line today. So any business or technical related questions, feel free to drop them in, and then we'll have the team monitor the chat and try to get those answered for you there as well. All right, let's get started. Off to you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everyone, again. I hope everyone can take away something new about Session Replay from this session. But to kick things off, I'm going to talk about Sentry's core value offering. And Sentry is an application monitoring platform that truly helps developers get comprehensive visibility into their code so they can see the most important issues, solve them faster, and learn from historical trends to optimize their code health over time. So where does Session Replay fit into all of this? It extends the error monitoring platform by enabling developers to accelerate time to resolution by augmenting the debugging experience. So more specifically, we do this by offering you a playback of everything that the user did leading up to an error so that you can reproduce it just a little bit faster instead of spending all day trying to reproduce it on your own machine. And we also enable developers to improve code quality. One of the things that we really care about at Sentry is, of course, the developer experience, understanding what is the world of a developer, and how our tools can help us to improve code quality. So let's talk about the troubleshooting process today. Sentry provides a lot of rich context and data, such as your wonderful stack trace, your source maps, your breadcrumbs, and you can actually go point to the specific line number in your code that relates to a problem. But even there, with all this information, there are times when you can look at the breadcrumbs, try to reproduce, and you still can't see the error on your own machine. But what if you could see what the user saw? So what if you could see an error as the user experienced it? This is where Session Replay comes in. It bridges the gap between your code and the user's experience. And it does this by providing a complete view of your user journey before and after they run into an error on your web app, so you can reproduce and solve problems faster. And I just want to double click into the after, because the before is the reproduction steps, but the after is actually very insightful as well, because you can assess what the severity of the issue was. So if you know that after an issue was hit, the user dropped off and they stopped continuing using your site, that is a pretty severe issue potentially. And it allows you to help triage what are the most important issues. Alternatively, you may see an issue come in and it did not impact the user experience, or the user did not even notice it at all. So now let's get into the mechanics. So if you were to send us replay data, this is like the deep dive replays view that you would see. And there are a number of components on this page, so I'm going to touch on most of them. So first and foremost is we have the replay function that I talked about, and that is a playback of everything that happened within a user session before and after an error. Next, we have the breadcrumbs. And I just want to clarify, this isn't the identical breadcrumbs list that you see on the issue details. It is actually tailored to be more user-oriented. So you will see things such as your page loads, your navigations, your clicks, your inputs, your web vitals. And then we take this breadcrumbs list, and at the very top of the page, we have the timeline. This is where we essentially fan out the breadcrumbs so that you can see sort of the time in between each of the breadcrumbs. And you can also see where the error occurred in the duration of a session. And lastly, we provide a way to kind of inspect the playback video deeper. And this is by providing features that you would most likely see in your dev tools. So for example, console logs, network requests, memory usage. And then we have other kind of Sentry elements tied into the replay product, such as you can see the traces that occurred during this session and all of the issue groups that belong to this session. So one very, very key important thing to note for your eligibility of this product is that it's available today for all browser JavaScript applications. So this is Sentry Browser, of course, and our browser framework SDKs. And it includes some of the newer frameworks, such as Next.js and Svelte. So you're probably wondering what sets apart Sentry Session Replay, from the other ones out there on the market. And for us is we are primarily focused on the developer experience. And there are a number of ways that we do this. Is we have the ability to sample sessions only when an error occurs. And this is actually not a common feature across Session Replay product. We also promote strong privacy settings out of the box. We really care about user privacy, and that is why our default configuration is to mask all text, whether it's inputted or not, and all media. And we are integrated into your existing workflow. So if you're one of our beta customers who have actually installed Session Replay, you would know that you see a replay thumbnail or preview in your issue details, which is obviously the most common Sentry workflow. And we're continuing to take more and more steps every day to better integrate it. And we also offer 90-day retention for your recordings, so things won't get lost very quickly. And we have competitive pricing, and I will go into a little bit more detail on the specific model and numbers in a couple slides from now. So data privacy, as I mentioned on the previous slide, is incredibly important to us. And as I mentioned, we mask all text in media by default. And we've also are implementing PII server-side scrubbing, similar to what you would see with the error event product. And this includes masking sensitive information by default, such as passwords and credit cards, from appearing on replays. So if it wasn't clear by the title of this AMA, Session Replay is an open beta, and I'm going to explain a little bit about what that means. So this means all organizations have access to Session Replay during this beta period. So if you are a Sentry customer, you should see it on your left nav. It'll have a shiny beta badge, and it is free of use during this period. And this free period will extend into the very least end of March. And I want to make it very clear that when we do introduce pricing, we will be giving all of our early adopters, aka beta users, ample time to make a decision of whether they want to pay or not for pay for Session Replay or not pay for Session Replay. And to continue using Session Replay, you will need to manually opt into the paid version. So there will be no credit cards that are billed automatically. And we are targeting a public launch date in February. So this has been a very common question throughout our beta period. And I want to give a sense of our pricing model and our actual pricing numbers. So first and foremost, we are pricing based on replays volume, similar to how we do errors volume and transactions volume. It does not matter the size or duration of your replay, just the count or number of replays. We have base allotments included in your plan for free. So if you're on the developer plan, it is 50. If you're on team or business, it is 500. And in terms of pricing numbers specifically, we are starting at 10K replays on team and business, and this is an additional $29 per month. And then you can go up to more than 10 replays from there. And as you go up, we apply volume discounts, so it'll be at a lower rate. And annual plan discounts apply. So if you, instead of paying on a monthly basis, if you pay on an annual basis, for example, your $29 a month will go down to 26. That was all I had for my presentation. I look forward to answering your questions at the end of this session, but now let's move on to Josh and he can provide us a live demo.
Hey, yeah, can everyone see my screen okay? I'll confirm that as a yes. Great, awesome. So today I'm going to be demoing Session Replay, and first I want to give you an idea of my use case. So I've got this Pokemon app where I can go in and look at Pokemon, catch them, and view them. And it's a pretty exciting app. I'm stoked to work on it some more. But after releasing it, I got a stack trace. It looks like there was an error in my code. So I look at it. The stack trace starting off is not super helpful. Cannot read properties of undefined. So I go and I click into this error, looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what was the cause of this error? So I go in and the stack trace, first of all, is not very helpful. Cannot read properties undefined. Map, there's some list somewhere that's not, seems like I'm trying to map something that doesn't exist, although I'm not quite sure where that is. And it looks like, okay, we tried to save a Pokemon that was named undefined. That's weird. I see the UI clicks. Looks like we're clicking on some stuff, and we throw an error here. Looks like we're throwing other errors. Man, it just looks like kind of a mess. And from seeing this, I don't really know what's going on. I see they navigated a few times, and they went to this Bulbasaur. That's not a Pokemon. I don't know how they got there. But more or less, I'd kind of have to sit here and really reconstruct what they did, and maybe, and if I can't replicate it, if I can't spend the time to replicate it, maybe I have to go in and ask the customer what they did, or try and figure out what happened. But yeah, so I'm kind of stuck here and don't have a great set of clues to go off of. So okay, not great, but let's kind of see what it's like with the new Session Replays experience. So first of all, to set up Session Replays, it's quite simple. So basically, I have my normal Sentry configuration here, and the only thing I did to add Session Replays is these three lines here. So basically, I set the sample rate for sessions, I set the sample rate on errors, and I added the Sentry Session Replay integration. Great, that's awesome. So let's see what it's like in the new world. So here I have the same error, and you can see this time, instead of just simply the stack trace, I have a list of replays that I can also view instead of going into the stack trace. But if I go ahead and go into the stack trace, it's the same view, except this time I can see the replay right away of the session that caused this error. And so I have the same breadcrumbs here, but I can open this replay instead. So if I go ahead and do that, we've now got the replays page open. And the first highlight, we've tried to recreate the kind of browser developing debugging experience. So that way, things are familiar. We have things like the console tab, the network tab, and so forth. So that way, you can kind of get a sense of what this browser, the state of this browser was in when this error happened. So full screening the replay, we can see here that first of all, you'll see that the text is masked. And so instead of showing what the all of the various elements are, they're all starred out. And basically what that means is for our Session Replays product, privacy is on by default. Basically, when you send replays, of course, there can be PII, and likely there is. So basically, the first line of defense we say is, okay, by default, all text, all input, everything is starred. And from what we've found, what developers have told us, and our own experiences show that this is usually enough to debug what's going on. You don't need to actually see the exact text a lot of the time with a replay. So if we go ahead and watch it, we can see what the user is doing. So, and as we're watching, we also can see the different user actions, the user inputs, and the navigation events. So we can see this user clicked on a Pokemon. They went ahead and caught it, and you can see that all of the images are grayed out as well. So here they go ahead and capture a Pokemon. They save it. They go to my Pokemon. Okay, and so so far so good. We haven't had any errors. The user is experiencing the website very normally. And so then they go into the search bar, and we can see that they type in the word Bulbasaur, which isn't a Pokemon. That's a misspelled name. But somehow they're brought to this page anyways. They're brought to a page that looks like a Bulbasaur. I know that from before they caught a Pokemon named Bulbasaur, so something is weird going on with the search bar. So they search, they hit Bulbasaur, and we continue to watch, and we see they go to capture it. We get an error there. That's the first error that happens. That's strange. Okay. But it looks like we're actually able to catch this Pokemon that doesn't exist. And then when we navigate over to my Pokemon, that's when this error happens and we get a white screen. And so from this, we know a couple things. We're able to replicate exactly what the user did to get the error. We're also able to see what the experience was after the error happened. So a lot of the times you can get a stack trace where it's not super it's not the largest, P1 deal in the world where you need to go fix it right away. But in this case, we can see that this actual situation broke the website for the user. And so they're not able to actually continue using the website. And if this were an app that were released to customers, they would not be very happy. They'd be very upset. And so with this, we're able to go ahead and get a full understanding of the flow that the user took, and then from there, see exactly what the experience was and know that it wasn't a good experience. And so some other things to call out here, we've got the console tab, the DOM events tab, where we can see the various user inputs, and also see the network tab, and various other parts of the Sentry product, traces and issues, and then of course the replay player, which I've kind of shown here. I think as far as demos go, I think this is the conclusion of it, and I hope this was useful to see how session replay works and what you can get out of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh, for that awesome presentation. Hopefully, for those of you who haven't tried session replay in beta yet, this gives you a good sense of what the experience is like and also what you can use session replay for. Great. So now we have plenty of time. We're now going to move on and open it up to the floor for questions. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to go ahead and drop questions into the YouTube chat, feel free to do that. We also have a list of questions that came in before the session. So we're going to go ahead and get started with those. Let me add Jasmine back in here. There we go. Okay, so first one, this came in from Antonio. Question is, can my users block session capture?
So the answer to this question is yes, they can if they are using ad blockers. Similarly, we block all other requests to Sentry. So this is true. If somebody has ad blockers turned on, we don't see their errors or transactions. So there is a workaround available for this, and this is using the tunnel option in the SDK and tunneling the Sentry request to your server first, which forwards it to Sentry. So there are documentation. So if Bruno or somebody else could link the documentation, that would be great. But that is essentially a workaround, and the answer is yes, they could today if you do not have that workaround.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, the next question, this comes from Ryan, and it's related to performance. Does session replay cause any degradation in performance, and how network efficient is it?
Yeah, I can take that one. So from our perspective on most applications under most circumstances, performance issues, performance overhead is more or less negligible compared to other things that modern websites do. Now, of course, this doesn't cover all use cases and all websites and the combinatorial things of devices and so forth. So it's hard to give a blanket answer, but from our testing, it looks good on our websites and our beta customers, the majority of our beta customers. But of course, before deploying something to production, you should test it out on your own devices and make sure that all things are nominal.
Awesome. Okay, I see some questions come through the chat around extending session replay to other platforms. Jasmine, do you mind walking us through what that looks like? And also, what additional features are we planning to build for session replay?
So as for, I see the questions in the chat, and I know there are questions around Android, iOS, React Native. We are potentially exploring a mobile solution, but it is not sort of guaranteed or confirmed yet, but it is something that we are investigating. As for the question that came in from Owen before the live stream, what additional features do you plan to build in the future for session replay? That is a fantastic question. So I'm going to talk about a few ones that we are going to be implementing in the next quarter. First is we want to tie session replays to backend errors. So for all of our beta users, you would know that we only tie them to front-end errors today, but we want to connect them to backend errors in the future. And the reason why is if we have this, you're able to essentially see how a backend error translates in the UI and how a customer would experience it, how impactful it is to the end customer. And also you're able to kind of go, it's also the reverse case where if you see a front-end error, you can see if it's tied back to something associated in your backend. So you could see if the root cause is something deeper in your stack by having the connection of session replay to backend errors. So that is an example of one thing that we are currently building. Another one is the ability to search by DOM elements. So we have our replay landing page, and there's a number of very useful search filters, but we want to expand and provide more value. And with being able to search by DOM elements, you can actually search specific areas of code in the sense that you can see every time a user clicked a specific button on your website, or clicked a modal, or viewed a dialog box. So those are some examples of features that we're looking to build actually in the next 3 months or so.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview, Jasmine. Okay, next question. So as we know, there are several other session replay tools in the market. So we are definitely aware of that. And there are some differences that we have in our product that might, be differentiators or a little bit different than what you have seen using some other session replay tools. So we've had a few questions come in regarding how Sentry Session Replay product compares to LogRocket. So I'm going to go ahead and read off a question that came in pre-event from Josh. What features will Session Replay be lacking as compared to LogRocket when it launches? What do you believe to be the key benefits of Session Replay within Sentry? Assuming one already uses Sentry for errors, user reports performance, as opposed to separately using LogRocket. Josh, Jasmine, either of you want to take this one?
I can take it. This is an excellent question. I am in no means a LogRocket expert, but what I can say about Session Replay and our general sort of philosophy is that we want to be the most developer-focused session replay tool on the market, and we want to combine it with our extremely powerful and industry-leading error monitoring platform that is already used by millions of developers. and how we want to be the best for developers is focusing on features that are most important to them, such as the ability to search by DOM elements, as well as being able to integrate deeply with all the other existing products in Sentry. So you've already started, if you're a beta user, you would have seen this already with the issues platform, at least for front-end errors. And now we're going to continue to integrate with our back-end errors, which is actually something that's quite unique, because if you look at other tools on the market, they really focus on the front end and not how the back end actually translates to the front end. And sort of in the long term, you'll see it kind of integrating more deeply with performance and highlighting LCP elements on the page and things of that nature. And also part of our Sentry philosophy is to be extremely easy to adopt and frictionless. And we made actually a change this quarter, and people who've been part of the beta process for a long time would have noticed this, where we actually merged the replay package with the mono repo to make it even more easy to install. And another core way that we want to set ourselves apart is really putting user privacy first and ensuring nothing leaves the browser and ensuring all PII is scrubbed. So this is a number of ways that we want to differentiate ourselves and things that are important to our philosophy.
Awesome. Okay. Another slightly LogRocket related question. Can you implement filtering by custom events like you can on LogRocket? So we can create a custom event to filter the replay by and tag recordings as that event when users do things that we want to see recordings of. This came from Owen. Josh, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Yep, so the replays tagging functionality works the same as other Sentry events. So you can just go and add a tag during the replay when something occurs, and that replay will be tagged with that text. And yep, the search will work the same as elsewhere in Sentry, where you can search the replay by the tag that you add. So the answer is yes, you will be able to search by custom things that you want to tag replays with.
Awesome. Okay, and a similar question, can you implement the ability to see all the recordings for a particular anonymous user? So we can filter by a user's email or name, but not for users of our app that are anonymous. And we need to be able to watch a recording of the user and then click for examples. And this is, yeah, something that is available in other session replay tools.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, so basically, if you don't have the user ID to tag them with, right now we don't sort of give anonymous users IDs. And part of that's because of our privacy-centric approach, but also things like GDPR and CCPA, where you know, if you're running replays and you don't want to give a user consent form for every little ID you add. So that's something that we're looking at, though, and depending on the use case and regulations and so forth, we may add in the future. But for now, like one thing we have is like IP address, and you can always, if you want to override a default settings, you can always tag the user with your own cookie that you've already opted them in for.
Awesome. Okay, moving on. Someone asked, could you make an 8 times for playback speed?
I can answer this one. In fact, I believe, let me check. That's already shipped. We have 8 and 16x in the product as of today. So between the question was asked, we have answered and already changed it. So good stuff.
Awesome. Great. Will session replay be offered in open source or self-hosted Sentry?
I can answer that one. The answer is yes, it will be offered, not for the launch date in February, but as a quick follow-up after the launch.
Great. I'm looking through the chat, and it seems like there's a few questions around sample rates. So I don't know if Josh, Jasmine, it looks like there's already been some good discussion in the chat, but if we want to, either of you want to give a quick overview of the sampling techniques again, and how customers can implement those techniques, would be good.
Yeah, I can answer this one. Yeah, so we basically have two sampling strategies. One is session-based, and one is error-based. So basically what that means is if you set, say, your session sample rate to 10%, that means when a user lands on your site, there's essentially a 10% chance we will go ahead and record that user session. Now, if you were to set your error sample rate to 10%, that means that when you land on the page and then an error occurs, there's essentially 10% of the time we will start the recording, and if an error occurs, we will send it. So basically with those, you can kind of use them, the session sample rate, to essentially get an idea of, okay, I just want some basic sessions around how people use the website. I want to go in and watch for specific ones and for specific pages and so forth. Whereas the error sample rate is very much focused on, okay, when an error happens, I want to get a certain percentage of those replays associated with those errors.
Awesome. Okay, I think we got through all of the questions that came in pre-event. If you have any additional questions after this session, please feel free to shoot us an email. And I'll just give a few moments. It looks like we have a few more questions coming in through the chat. So let's see. Austin, have you done any performance testing, Sentry replay versus LogRocket, that you would be able to share? If there is a Sentry that is an X% faster than LogRocket, it would make it an easy sell internally.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, so we have some benchmarks internally, but of course, before releasing them, we want to, of course, make it transparent and also probably publish the source. The other problem is there's just so many different kinds of websites. It's also kind of, we can run some benchmarks, but of course, like, we can say one thing and the user tests it, and so you always kind of need to do your own testing. But basically, the answer is yes, we do want to come out with some benchmarks.
Awesome. Okay, we have a few more minutes. If you have any additional questions, I'll give about a minute here for you to ask away. Okay, great. Looks like we answered everything. Well, few follow-ups. Thank you everyone for joining. We do have a Discord channel, which I'm going to throw up on the screen here. So feel free to head over to our Session Replay Sentry Discord channel to continue the conversation. Our engineering team is frequently on Discord. So if you have any questions, comments as you try out Session Replay in beta, or once this goes public, please feel free to utilize that channel to get your questions answered. And then here is the link to our website at sentry.io. And this will give, all the important information around Session Replay, how to get started. There's a great recorded demo that we have as well available on this landing page. So make sure to check this out. And then finally, if you could copy this link, this should lead you to a quick Google form that is a survey about this AMA session. So if you could take, 60 seconds to fill this out after this session, any of your feedback is much appreciated and will help us improve our future sessions. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate your time and hope that you can give Session Replay a shot. And for those of you who have already tried it, we hope that you have started to see value from this new product. And we all look forward to you adding this on to your Sentry platform and continuing to find use out of it. Great. All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.